Now, the premise of our conversation is this quote here from Nikola Tesla, which you've probably heard before. Certainly, it's one of his more popular quotes, in which he states, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." Today, I want to relate this over to mental states and its relationship when it comes to suggestion. So we work with people a lot of times, and our relationship is based on our internal dialogue. That is what we are suggesting to ourselves. Now, William Walker Atkinson, he wrote an interesting book. It's called Mental Fascination. Now, if we want to direct the energy, which then plays out as harmonious people, we want to remember that it is tracked back to the mental state we are in. And we want to understand something very clearly, that there's actually one suggester within ourselves. And even if I suggest something to you, or you experience suggestion from this five sensory world, we are the ones, via the conscious mind, determining what that suggestion means or what it means, and suggesting to ourselves upon the subconscious mind, in which the subconscious mind expresses. So he says it here. He says, "The theories of suggestion are not contrary to those of mentative energy and induction when properly understood. The facts of suggestionists are undoubted, but they make the mistake of ignoring the mental states of the suggestionists. They think that their effects are produced by suggestion alone, and forget the mental state behind the suggestion, which is the real motive force. If their theories be true, why is it that two men using the same words of suggestion upon the same subject produce varying degrees of effect? It is because the mental state or dynamic mentation of the two men vary in quality and degree. The suggestionist thinks that he is merely directing his suggestion by words toward the subject, but all the time he's pouring out a current of mentative energy which rapidly induces the desired mental state in the subject. The best suggestionists are those who have acquired the suggestive manner, which is developed by the exercise of authoritative utterances and commands, the physical appearance, manner, and tones arising from a reflection of the mental state within. So all day long we are suggesting to ourselves in relation to the different aspects of the journey. And what I'd like to encourage in this video, and certainly it has been beneficial for me, which is to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration as suggested by Nikola Tesla, by maintaining a certain state of mind in which the effects are what he says here: authoritative utterances, commands, physical appearance, manner, and tones. So, before we go a little deeper into the 5 classes of suggestion that he gave, let's reflect upon this quote here from Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Some of you know that the word drifter is being discussed all throughout the book, in which the definition here is, he says, I can best define the word drift by saying that people who think for themselves never drift, while those who do little or no thinking for themselves are drifters. A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind. In other words, the individual is giving meaning in which they believe that in relation to certain experiences with people, which is actually belief brought to the surface from past suggestion for revelation to make peace with, but they're associating with it unconsciously and bringing themselves into different states of mind which are not in alignment with the suggestionist who wants to have a flow-based journey to realizing the vision, experiencing harmonious relationships, etc. Now, this is very apparent when it comes to relating with people. I was on vacation last week, and I love having conversations, and there are many insights to be gained from conversations, such as a person's thinking pattern and how they got to where they are. I always found that to be very interesting, so I can understand their goals, their visions, and how they relate to their goals and their visions. And in regards to this conversation, how do I relate to all forms of communication that they have? Their voice tonality, their body language, and what they're saying. Because all of that is revealing within myself, what am I suggesting? How this theater plays out in interaction with this other person. And I want to encourage this with you. For you to think accurately. Think clearly in relation to your goal, in relation to your vision. Because as you maintain that thinking pattern, it is representative of certain states of mind, which you've entered into via certain thought processes in regards to communication with others. Because, a person could say something to you, or they could present a certain body language in which we may interpret it a certain way, and it could bring us into a different state of mind. This is extremely powerful when it comes to relationships and leadership. In order to maintain that harmonious, loving, lighthearted state of mind when it comes to communication, especially when it comes to, let's say, difficult conversations, we want to assume, or we could say suggest from within, truly in relation to the experience, rather than allowing certain five sensory information to form certain suggestions, which brings us into different states of mind, in which it alters our body language, our appearances, and all these things, the words that we use, and we might assume that those are the causative factors that brought forth a disharmonious-based conversation, when in actuality it was the state of mind upon suggestion. So let's look at the 5 classes of suggestion. So we're encouraging thinking for ourselves. Now we're going to relate this over to a practical way of applying this, but we want to get deeper into understanding these areas so we can work with it. So he's got 5 classes of suggestion. Now this is from another book in which I discussed it, in which he relates over to suggestion and autosuggestion. I'll put a link in the description to that video. 5 classes of suggestion. Number 1, the suggestion of authority. He says the suggestion of authority manifests both in the positive authoritative statements directed to the point, and also by the spoken or written statements made by those who speak or write with an air of authority. Now, when we experience communication like this, we form associations. We suggest to ourselves in relation to communication from others. And also, this kind of communication is an expression of a certain state of mind, in which what we want to do is go into the understanding that we consciously select certain states of mind rather than allowing the 5 sensory information to stimulate us into different states of mind. The suggestion of association. He says it is very easy for us to associate certain things with certain other things, and we will find that when one of the things is recalled, it will bring with it its associated impressions. So maybe someone has a team in which they're working on a project in relation to their goals, and they have certain interpretations, beliefs in regards to the people, which are a result of certain associations or suggestions from, let's say, their past. And it's brought to the surface based on reactivity when it comes to working on this project. That reactivity is revealing a state of mind that they're in. Now, once they recognize that this is what's going on, they can ask themselves, how am I relating to the people, the project? And they can suggest differently, or we could say suggest accurately to themselves. And we'll give some examples. How to think accurately in relation to the people, and thus then remain in a certain state, or remain in a certain state of mind, in which when they interact with those people, they will notice that those people express accordingly or reflect accordingly. Number 3, the suggestion of habit. He says, of course, all habits is an association with something in the past, but suggestion of habit may arise from an original cause of suggestion of authority, suggestion of association, suggestion of repetition, suggestion of imitation, or else from an original decision of the intellect resulting from correct reasoning. So there's a period of time where it could be different for everyone. The repetition of certain associations, suggestion of association or suggestion of authority, in which we're the ones within ourselves. You can say there's one suggester within ourselves. We're suggesting to ourselves, although we may think that the suggestions are from outside, when it's our interpretation in relation to. A book that I recommend reading is Influence the Psychology of Persuasion. Perhaps there are some of these unconscious patterns that we seem to allow. And so from the journey of recognizing these unconscious patterns, we know when we automatically assign certain meaning or suggestion in relation to different aspects of the journey. I actually did a discussion on it. I'll put a link in the description to the video, in which we can become more conscious that we're doing this in the moment, real time, and say, wait a second, this kind of suggestion will bring me into a different state of mind. I want to be in a state of mind that's in harmony with my vision. Now, through the repetition of dwelling in certain states of mind in relation to certain suggestions that are associated to people, environment, circumstance, and information, we form certain habitual states of mind that we're in. And what we want is a state of mind in which we see more harmony with others. And we can do this. We can bring ourselves into those states of mind and make those states of mind, you could say, a dwelling place, a state of mind where we're naturally like this. Suggestion of repetition. It is the constant dripping of water wearing away the stone. A suggestion which passes you without much attention or consideration. When first made, will gain both attention and consideration from you, if it be repeated sufficiently often and in the right manner. So we only need to look around in our environments, information being presented to us, news, etc., and recognize that there's probably some information that seems to be repeated again and again and again, in which we go into certain states of mind, in which when we catch ourselves, we could say, what is the suggestion that I'm giving to this information, even though it appears that the suggestion is from the five sensory world? I am the one within who can consciously associate to whatever suggestion in relation to. So what's the true and accurate suggestion that's going to allow me to maintain my flow and an ideal state of mind? Knowing that if I associate with certain suggestions, I would find myself in different states of mind that are not in harmony with how I truly want to be representing myself on this journey, flow-based journey to realizing my vision. And we got suggestion of imitation. He says, in the acceptance of suggestion of authority, there is to be found an unconscious imitation of the mental attitude of the person asserting the authority. In suggestion of association, there is an imitation of the associated thing. And in suggestion of repetition, there is to be found evidences of imitation. Examples are found in schools of philosophy, theories, thought, and religion. So we see this. Much of our suggestion and associations that we have formed is perhaps not consciously working with the two gifts of speech and mind. And To get even more specific, conscious mind and subconscious mind in relation to information, five sensory data. What kind of information are we suggesting to ourselves as we interact with the five sensory experience via the suggestion? Perhaps these categories over here can help us. Knowing that perhaps before we just allowed certain suggestions to go into our mind, now we'll be more conscious and aware of the kind of suggestions we are taking in, if the goal be to think for ourselves and form accurate and true harmonious beliefs, interpretations in relation to people, environment, circumstance, and information on the way to realizing our goals and visions. And the reason why we do this, again, we go back here to the quote. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So he's saying think feelingly, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, and you discover the secrets of the universe. So we find it within ourselves. By one way of working with this is intuition. As you go about your day-to-day experiences, ideally you start the day off in a certain state of mind, or you maintain a certain flow or a certain feeling, intuition all throughout the day, and you observe if anything breaks your flow, or you go into a different state of mind, something doesn't feel right, and ask yourself, what am I associating to what it is in relation to? And I always say this, you can accept things the way they are, you can change how you relate to it, or you can change it. Go into a place that is in harmony and in contribution to your vision, knowing that it'll allow you to maintain that certain state of mind. Certain masterminds, go into nature, environments, they play a role in allowing you to think clearly. I've taken an inventory of the different environments that I was in which, for whatever the reason, it's some kind of, let's say, unconscious suggestion from within. Those environments seem to bring out the best in me. Creative thinking, intuitive understandings, and the more we dwell in those states of mind that are true to us, and we know what we resonate with, we actually become like that. It's a form of autosuggestion. Speaking of which, he says, the phenomena of suggestion and that of autosuggestion can also blend into each other in subtle degrees. So we're talking about before the 5 classes of suggestion, and we want this done to ourselves, unto ourselves, via autosuggestion, consciously in relation to our vision. He says, for instance, one may receive an impression from outside, an impression which is the effect of a suggestion from outside, and being impressed by it, they may think it over and think and feel about it, so that the idea takes a firm hold upon them. We can then say it is impressed upon the subconscious mind, and the person begins to automatically express it. And when they look at their expressions, their behaviors, their body language, what they're saying, and so forth, they can pause and say, listen, I've gone into a different state of mind. That's what this is revealing. And then they can switch back into a different state of mind. He says, up to this point, it is the suggestion in its general phase. But then the suggestion is repeated to themselves, both in self-communion and in conversation with others, until an impression is made much deeper than that caused by the original impression. This secondary effect is autosuggestion, of course. So, in other words, they have suggested it to themselves in relation to the experience, and they keep suggesting it to themselves, in which it plays out as the disharmony-based behavior, conversations, and so forth. And so why is it that, if you go back here, I can best define the word drift by saying that a person who thinks for themselves never drift, while those who do little or no thinking for themselves are drifters. A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind. Why does it perhaps appear challenging? Certainly it was for me in the earlier stages of the journey. Well, perhaps we can relate it over this here, where he says, William Walker Atkinson, there is another form of autosuggestion which is overlooked by many of the authorities. We refer to cases of involuntary autosuggestion. in which the person impresses suggestions upon himself without intending to do so. Each time we don't do what we really want to do, live how we really want to live, authentically express the way we truly authentically want to express, operate from the premise of that we really can achieve our dreams, our visions, that we actually can do it from a place of flow, we can enjoy the process, thus maintain a certain feeling in which it'll bring forth certain, what he says, your secrets of the universe, thinking patterns, and ways of looking at things, ideas, inspiration that may be distinct. Each time we don't encourage that, we have the opportunity to ask ourselves something, what are we actually suggesting to ourselves? So that's why I like to work with cause and effect reflection. So we'll go through some examples. Essentially, in working with this particular video in regards to suggestion, we identify what the thinking pattern is. It can be beneficial to work with somebody to also help you identify the thinking pattern in regards to whatever it is that you are experiencing on your journey, which breaks your flow or brings you into a different state of mind if you're having challenges doing so. Reflect upon the suggestion that you're giving to yourself in regards to the experience. Perhaps somebody wants to go to a new city and they want to go out and meet people, but for some reason they keep thinking that they're going to get rejected or people aren't going to accept them. They seem to operate from that premise, and when they interact with people, it appears to them that people are rejecting them, not accepting them. Now, in that moment, they only need to reflect back on their past, because they'll notice that certain times it played out that way, yes, based on that certain state of mind. And in other times, it played out in a different way, based on a different state of mind. The different state of mind was one where they actually accepted themselves in that moment. Perhaps it was an earlier stage in their life, usually when they were children. They seemed to have no problem connecting with people, building relationships, because they see the whole world as friendly. Now, through life experiences, and more accurately put, suggestions in relation to those life experiences, they seem to have certain thinking patterns in regards to themselves, in regards to others, in which it brings them into certain states of mind before they interact with people, and they dwell in that state of mind and express it accordingly. So they find certain thinking patterns, such as, people don't accept me. And maybe if they had a conversation with someone, the person would say, listen, people don't accept you. Is that always true? Now, perhaps if they're sitting there by themselves, they might be dwelling in the idea, against self-suggestion, autosuggestion to themselves, that it's always like that, when in actuality, it wasn't always like that. They just seem to have been encouraging it more so, and so it appears like it's like that more often because they constantly dwell in that state of mind. Now, maybe the conversation with a friend, the friend says, listen, was there a time in your life where it was not like that? Let's talk about those experiences. And they managed to find 2, 3, 4, 5, many experiences where it wasn't like that. And so then the friend says, why wouldn't it be different this time? Could it be different this time? And they say, you know what? Yeah, it could be different this time. And they go into a different state of mind. And they start interacting with people, and they notice that people more so reflect. Again, let's go back to this part here. They think that their effects are produced by what a person says. A lot of times when someone is dwelling in a state of mind in which they don't accept themselves to the degree because they have been suggesting that others don't accept them and they don't accept themselves and whatnot, they usually say, what do I say? What do I say? When in actuality, what we want is authentic expression. And this authentic expression happens automatically when a person is operating from a certain state of mind, one of harmony. He says, the suggestionist thinks he's merely directing his suggestion by words toward the subject, but all the time he's pouring out a current of mentative energy. See, we relate to each other based on feeling and energy. And although we might not be able to put it in words and communicate, certainly some have the ability to do it. We don't really need the ability to do it. Feeling is the secret. When you resonate with a person, you resonate. When your energy is a certain way, it reflects in the conversation with others. We want to remind ourselves of these ways of thinking, which are true and accurate. Again, I found this in my own experience, working with myself and working with others. It's the mental state. So again, the suggestionist thinks that it is merely directing his suggestion or the words or different things that are surface level, we could say, towards the subject, but all the time he is pouring out a current of mentative energy which rapidly induces the desired mental state in the subject. The best suggestionists are those who have acquired the suggestive manner, which is developed by the exercise of authoritative utterances and commands and physical appearance, manner, and tones arising from a reflection of the mental state within. So, in other words, the more we can bring ourselves and maintain the mental state of harmony with others, through the repetition, the physical behaviors, the neural pathways, the body language, the tonality, those things change. And actually, I would say, as we relate over to the Neville Goddard information, is change happens instantaneously from the moment the person identifies with the state of mind. The only question is, do they maintain dwelling in the state of mind so that they could see the effects play out over the course? And so cause and effect reflection helps us with this. We identify our thinking patterns in relation to, such as the example that I gave. We reflect upon the suggestion that we're giving in relation to the people, environment, circumstances, which have been a formation perhaps as a result of associations in regards to authority, suggestion of association, suggestion of habit, suggestion of repetition, suggestion of imitation. But we can change those thinking patterns around by doing the subconscious mind work. Watch the almost 2-hour-long video I did on the power of the subconscious mind by Joseph Murphy. Everything that I've ever changed within myself has been a result of doing the subconscious mind work, in which it brought me into certain states of mind, and from those states of mind, the behaviors, the body language, that everything changes to reflect that state of mind. It becomes one, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it becomes one. And then number 3, we change how we relate through perhaps an autosuggestion. And as a matter of fact, let's conclude today's video with an autosuggestion in relation to the examples given, in which we can integrate in our inner dialogue so we can be in certain states of mind that reflect that kind of thinking, and we'll notice it in the changes in how we relate with others and so forth. We could say, I realize that everywhere I go, people accept me for who I am. I notice that I feel resonant with people in conversation, in relationships. I'm noticing that people seem to relate to me in the exact thinking patterns that are in harmony with my vision. It plays out in the words that they use, in their body language, in how they communicate with me. And I realize that this is because I'm in a state of mind that is in harmony with how I truly am. As I recognize this, I observe as this becomes a way of being. This internal dialogue or conversation of true suggestion of how I really am plays out in my relationships with friends, family, and every person that I meet. I could see it in their body language. I could hear it in their voice tonality. I could observe it in their choice of words, which is a reflection of my own tonality, body language, choice of words, which is expressed automatically from the state of mind of harmony. Thus I recognize that I am, by essence, harmonious. As I see these expressions, these reflections play out in my interactions with others, this further suggests to me that I really am this way. This continues to represent the authority within myself, who thinks accurately and clearly, forming associations to different areas of my life, the people, the environment, the circumstances, in relation to my goals and my vision, and my goals and my vision being in harmony and in contribution with the goals and visions of others. I notice that others show up with the same interests, with the same desires. I recognize that what I love loves me back. What I desire desires me. I'm able to see this more so, and it becomes a habit. Through the repetition of these kinds of thinking patterns, which are further encouraged by my experiences, upon reflection I realize that I am becoming more so how I truly desire to be, expressed in my words, body language, how I relate to others, how they relate to me, which is how I see myself now in my imagination, which is the source and cause of the expression of reality. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.